Hello everyone. Today we will take up the third chapter from your textbook, The Many Worlds of Literature. And in this third chapter, you will read about the experiments of Mahatma Gandhi. These two short passages are taken from his autobiography, and they deal with literary training, which is concerned with the training of faculties of mind, and spiritual training, which deals with the training of the spirit and the inculcation of moral values. Gandhi's approach is a practical one, open one, relying more on resources available to him than on a prescribed course. So we will see that instead of laying emphasis on the syllabus or the textbooks, Gandhi prefers to teach the students on the basis of his experience. Again, he says that the student body is a varied one because they belong to different backgrounds, speaking different languages, and as a teacher is able to relate to the students because he says he has no ego problem. Gandhi wrote his autobiography, that is My Experiments with Truth, in two volumes. The first one was published in 1927 and the second in 1929. The original volume was written in Gujarati, and this passage which we will be reading is about the life he led in Tolstoy farm, where he was in South Africa, and along with other Indians he was building up a movement of resistance against racial discrimination, which means the difference made on the basis of color, white complexion and black complexion. So in this passage it is suggested that literary training, however, is a difficult matter, and Gandhi says he had neither the resources nor the necessary literary equipment, means the books or the prescribed syllabus, and Gandhi says he had no time he to devote to the subject. The physical work that Mahatma Gandhi was doing at the Tolstoy farm left him thoroughly exhausted, means tired, at the end of the day, and he used to have the classes after his work was completed and when he was in need of some rest. But instead of taking rest, he chose to teach the youngsters. One drawback was that instead of being fresh for the class, he took the classes with the greatest difficulty because it was very hard to keep himself awake, as his mornings had to be devoted to work on the farm and domestic duties. So the school hours had to be kept after the midday meal. There was no other time suitable for the school. But Gandhi, he wanted to teach the Indian students. He loved teaching, so he could not resist from this job. He gave 3 periods at the most to literary training. Now, he knew four languages and he took up the task of teaching these four languages to the people who were residing near his Tolstoy farm. Hindi, Tamil, Gujarati, and Urdu were all taught, and tuition was given through the vernaculars of the boys. They were taught in their own mother tongue. English was taught as well. So, in total, five or six languages Gandhiji gave tuition. It was also necessary to acquaint the Gujarati Hindu children with the little Sanskrit and to teach all the children elementary history, geography, and arithmetic, which was essential. So he says he had undertaken to teach Tamil and Urdu. The little Tamil Gandhiji came to acquire during voyages, his travels, and in jail, and he had not got beyond Pope's excellent Tamil handbook. Gandhiji says that his knowledge of the Urdu script was also that he had acquired on a single voyage, and his knowledge of the language was confined to the familiar Persian and Arabic works that he had learnt from his contact with Muslim friends. Of Sanskrit, Gandhi says that he knew no more than he had learnt at the high school. Even his Gujarati was no better than that which one acquires at the school. But still, in spite of all these facts, Gandhiji says that he had to carry on in poverty of literary equipment, means he did not have enough of textbooks or material to be provided to the students. So he says, in poverty of literary equipment, means the books, my colleagues went one better than. He says his colleagues proved to be better in matter of books, etc. But Gandhiji says his love for the languages of his country, that is India, and his confidence in his capacity as a teacher, and also the ignorance of the students, and more than that, their generosity stood him in good stead. Means, in spite of the fact that he did not have enough of study material, he proved to be a good teacher. Why? Because he loved the languages mentioned above, and his confidence in his capacity as a teacher, and also the students who were ignorant, who did not have knowledge of these languages, proved that he could teach them well. The Tamil boys were all born in South Africa and therefore knew very little Tamil and did not know the script at all. So Gandhiji had to teach them the script and the rudiments of the grammar, the rules. That was easy enough. Gandhiji says his pupils knew that they could any day beat me in Tamil conversation, and when Tamilians, not knowing English, came to see me, they became my interpreters. Means the Tamilians, the parents of these Tamil boys or girls, they came to meet Gandhi and proved to be the translators. I got along merrily. Gandhiji says he was quite happy with his job because he had never attempted to disguise his ignorance from his pupils. He never attempted to disguise, means to prove that he knew everything. Whatever he knew, he told the students. He was not ashamed of his ignorance. In all respects, I showed myself to them exactly as I really was. So this is the main point, means showing what you really are instead of deceiving through disguise. Whatever you know, you must confess. Whatever you do not know. Therefore, in spite of his colossal ignorance of the language, Gandhiji says he never lost the love and respect of his pupils, of his students. It was comparatively easier to teach the Muslim boys Urdu because they knew the script, and he had simply to stimulate in them an interest in reading and to improve their handwriting, because the Muslim boys already knew the script. Only thing was, Gandhiji needed to stimulate in them an interest towards reading and writing their script, that is Urdu. These youngsters were for the most part unlettered and unschooled, means they had not gone to the school before, and they were illiterate or uneducated, and he found in the course of his work that he had very little to teach them beyond weaning them from their laziness. Means main purpose of Gandhiji was to develop interest in them towards their studies. As Gandhiji was content with this, he could pull on with boys of different ages and learning different subjects in one and the same classroom. Of textbooks about which we hear so much, Gandhiji says he never felt the need, the want. He says in place of textbooks, he provided the students with examples from his real life. He says he does not even remember having made use of the books that were available. He did not find it at all necessary to load the boys, the students, with number of books. He have always felt that the true textbook for the pupil is his teacher. I remember very little that my teachers taught me from the books. And Gandhiji relates from his own life that he has even now a clear recollection of the things they taught, the teachers taught him independently of books. He means to say that whatever his teacher taught him from books, he can hardly remember anything. But whatever they taught him from their experience, the recollection is still clear in his mind. Children take in much more and with less labor through their ears than through their eyes. Whatever they hear, they remember better than whatever they see through their eyes. I do not remember having read any book from cover to cover with my boys, means from page to page. He says, I hardly remember any book which I have read to my students, but I gave them in my own language all that I had digested from my reading of various books. But he says he has given his students all that knowledge which he got from his reading of various books, and I dare say they are still carrying a recollection of it in their minds. Gandhiji is sure that these students still remember what he taught them without the use of books. It was laborious for them to remember what they learned from books, but whatever was imparted to them by word of mouth, whatever was taught to them orally, they remembered better than what they read. Reading was a task for them but listening to him was a pleasure. Gandhiji says it was difficult for them to read, but to listen was a pleasure. And when he did not bore them by failure to make any subject interesting, means children did not get bored because he made the study so very interesting. And from the questions that my talks prompted them to put, which suggested that the students grasped whatever Gandhiji taught and they would put various questions. This was a measure of their power of understanding.